This episode is brought to you by Art, Martin, and Joseph, this week's newest patrons. We talk a lot around here about different sailboats in our price point episodes that we do all the time, and we've explored hundreds of different boats at this point. And I mean everything from those full keel ocean crossing boats that are perfectly happy being at sea in a gale to the floating condos that are meant to island hop most of the time and keep a closer eye on the weather. In my consulting that I do with boat buyers, I find the two hottest price points in the sailboat market right now are about $80,000 and about $120,000. So what's the difference? What does $120,000 get you that $80,000 just doesn't? This week on Everything You Need to Know, the showdown between the $80,000 sailboat and the one that costs $120,000. Now, there are two types of people watching this right now that want to see two different types of boats. So we're actually going to look at both. The island hopper who wants space and modern design and modern features, and then the more ocean-going person who sort of wants a full keel. First up, for those island hoppers who want the floating condo sort of luxury, what does 80 grand actually get you in that market right now? Well, the market is full, and I mean full, of these sort of mid-30-foot production style boats, like this one, a very typical $80,000 boat that's sitting in Wilmington for sale right now. Now, this is a more modern 2007 Beneteau 343, so it's a 34-footer. They made a few hundred of these from 2005 to 2008, and they are very, very common boats, whether it's this Beneteau or a Hunter or the equivalent Catalina. This Beneteau weighs about 12,000 pounds, so it's a little bit heavy for its size, and it's very capable of sailing down the east coast of Florida and then jumping across the Bahamas. And I can tell you firsthand, you will find a bunch of boats like this down in the islands, typically anchored off some beautiful white sandy beach, sipping sundowners, blowing conch horns every night. They're everywhere. This one carries just 20 gallons of diesel and a reasonable 67 gallons of fresh water, but it will have jerry cans lashed to the rail for that extra diesel, and then of course a couple for gas for the dinghy and for the suitcase generator that it's sure to have on the transom all night to run the air conditioning. Being a Beneteau, you're going to get all the sort of Benettoniness $80,000 production boat stuff that you'd expect on this boat. It's almost like this thing is perfect for spending 6 months out of the year in the Bahamas. You get the quality of life things like a walk-through transom with a sugar scoop, which makes it way easier to get on and off of the boat out of the dinghy or out of the water when you're snorkeling. You also get a fairly large cockpit, so you're not going to be uncomfortable doing those 14-hour days down the East Coast when you're running south from the cold weather. And all the lines are led aft too, so you won't be up on deck very often. And inside, of course, we get that typical Beneteau style. We get lots of white cushions and lots more of IKEA-looking woodwork in a color that I actually don't mind this color. It's a little bit darker. It's the really light color, the almost white, that really makes it look cheap in my opinion. You get a fridge and a freezer and a kind of galley that's sort of typical for a 34-footer. It's not huge, but it's manageable. And the saloon table folds out so 4, maybe 6 people can dine in fairly good comfort. We get dated but sort of functional looking electronics. I see a lot of Raymarine. I see some wind instruments here though, which aren't really necessary for cruising, but I think if you're going to drop 80 grand, you should get wind instruments. We also get a chart plotter that you'll more than likely not use because you're going to use your tablet anyway. And of course, being a production boat, all the hardware inside and the switchgear looks modern and functional and like it's factory. It's all meant to be there and it's very well thought out on where it's located. And this boat actually looks pretty well cared for. It seems also that maybe the first mate did a lot of decorating and it genuinely looks really good inside. I love the vibe of this boat. It's very islandy, very tropical. I probably wouldn't change anything. And this boat is basically exactly what you want if you're a couple who want to use it for island hopping through the Caribbean, but not really much more than that. It's everything that you need to do it in comfort. Now, like I said, this is very typical for an $80,000 production style boat. But what if you want something a little bit more, something a little more blue water? It would need to be a lot heavier than 12,000 pounds with much bigger fuel tanks, much bigger water tanks, and likely it's going to be a bit older, but a bit bigger. Check this one out. This, and you've probably never heard of it, is a 1973 Duncan Marine. This is the Garden 46. You might have heard of the 45. This one's different, and it's in very, very, very good shape for 80 grand. Now, this is meant to cross oceans, and while the Beneteau may do with a measly 20 gallons of diesel, this thing carries 300 gallons. And water, the Beneteau had 67 gallons, which will get you by. This has 300 gallons. She was meant to be at sea for weeks and weeks at a time. And this is a deck saloon. So inside you get massive windows with a second helm to keep you out of the weather. We were talking about this on a consult the other day on whether or not a second helm inside is worth it. And I think if you're going to be making miles with somewhere to go, you don't want to have to be held up in port because of a rainy day when it's cold outside. So having a second helm inside makes a lot of sense, especially if that inside has heat or air conditioning. You also get a U-shaped galley, which is a more ocean-going thing. This way you can actually use it while the boat is rocking around under sail or bucking back and forth. You have something to brace yourself against. You also get lots of very beautiful woodwork with craftsmanship that's way different than that whole IKEA look. This boat also has what we call sea berths, which are specifically meant to be used in rough seas to take a nap while you're not on shift, or while you're keeping watch at night. It's somewhere comfortable. In fact, other than the two massive cabins you get with this boat, you also get extra crew berths pretty much everywhere. These are the singles that are sort of up on the wall. And you get a head with a completely separate standalone shower too, which is pretty cool. Looking at the pictures, this boat is actually aging extremely well, but not very much is actually known about Duncan Marine. It's hard to find how many they made and what design it was and what all their different designs were. There's not a whole lot of history there that's very public, but what we do know is it's a full keel and it looks to be about 30,000 pounds. Now, this particular boat has already been halfway around the world more than once, the owner says. It's done at least 2 crossings of the Panama Canal, and it's been extensively refitted to keep it up over the years, and I'd agree with that looking at the pictures. The engine hasn't been done since the late 90s, however, so even if there's very few hours on it, I'm sort of thinking in the first 5 years you own this thing, you should probably plan on about 10 grand to repower it. Probably wise. To be honest with you, for 80 grand, this is a huge amount of blue water ocean going goodness. It even has dinghy davits and a built-in generator, and for a big blue water monster, it's actually pretty good looking and extremely functional. Too often these old blue water boats were hard to live with on the inside. They were very tight and dark like a cave, but this one isn't. It's very usable, and it's a very comfortable floor plan. I also love all the black sunbrella coverings on everything. Obviously somebody's got a sail right down below, and they're making covers for just about everything. And it all matches the black stripe down the side of the boat. And I love the round port lights and the beautiful woodwork. And with the boat name custom scribed across the front, I love the big windows, and I love how well kept everything is. Everything about this boat looks amazing and beautiful and very, very ocean-worthy. And while being comfortable and safe, it's ready for tens of thousands of more miles. You really can't go wrong taking a look at this particular boat. And pending a good survey, dropping 80 grand on a boat that you can actually live with for the next few decades, this is one heck of a deal. Lady K Sailing is brought to you by patrons, people who give a couple of bucks an episode to make these videos possible. If you'd like to help me keep making these videos, please consider becoming a patron. So that's 80 grand covered. 2 very different, but equally sort of purpose-built boats. One is for island hopping and comfort and space with a modern design, and the other is to do the same, but also be able to cross oceans and really go anywhere you want, but without the ease of having things like a walk-through transom and a sugar scoop. If either of those are plenty enough to meet the goal, then what exactly do you need to spend more for? What does $120,000 get you above what these things already have? What is that extra 40 grand for? 40 grand that you could just put in your bank account for the cruising budget, which would buy you easily 3 years of living in paradise. Side note, a lot of you guys have been needing help boat shopping and taking advantage of my consulting thing that I do on the side outside of these videos. That's where you can book an hour of my time to chat and ask questions and look at boats together. If you need help, head on over to ladyksailing.com/consults. I look forward to chatting with you. For 120 grand on the production boat side, we see a lot of things like this one. This is a gorgeous Jeanneau Sun Odyssey 45. It's a twin helm, and if that Beneteau that we looked at earlier was enough to go cruising comfortably, this is doing it with an extra 10 feet of boat and a whole lot of extra comfort on a much faster boat. Plus, this already has an arch and solar panels, and we get 2 heads on this one with 3 cabins, with that owner cabin in the front. I love this being the forward centerline berth, which is my favorite layout because I'd sleep up front and have guests come over and stay in one of the rear cabins and then use the other rear cabin for storage. This boat also gives us an electric winch to make sail handling much easier when you're short-handed, and huge tankage, 300 liters of diesel and 600 liters of fresh water, so you won't be lashing any jerry cans to the deck of this very pretty boat. We also get a spinnaker, and we get an inner forestay, or a baby stay people call it, that gives us a lot more sail options when we're underway. And this is a Sun Odyssey, so on top of that huge space in the cockpit with 2 helms and a sugar scoop for easy boarding, we also get Harkin Go Fast blocks everywhere sort of strewn about, and a fast hull. So you won't be trying to catch up with everyone on your travels. You'll likely be leading the pack from tropical island to tropical island. We get more weight with this thing too. We get 22,000 pounds to throw around and push the waves out of the way. And we get a 16-foot beam to make sure you have all the space you could ever ask for inside, with the very nicely laid out floor plan. And I already mentioned I love the centerline forward berth. This boat also looks to be in fairly good shape, and it's fairly typical for what $120,000 will get you of a modern production style sort of boat on this market. I'd personally also be looking at like Catalina 42 Mark IIs, but they would give you a bit more space, but at the sacrifice of a little bit of speed. The Jeanneau is going to be faster, and this one does everything I would need it to do. So if in the production boat world, the extra 40 grand gets you basically the same thing, an island hopper, except bigger and faster and better in pretty much every measurable way, other than the price, what does the ocean-going blue water boat get for the extra 40 grand? I mean, can it be any better than that Duncan 46 that we looked at earlier? It turns out it can. For 120 grand, this, my friends, is the legendary Brewer 44. And I'm sure you've heard of a Brewer 44. These things are renowned. These things are known the world over to be sort of rock-solid, ocean-going, live-aboard, very live-aboard cruising boats. And you can find them everywhere in the Caribbean. But also, I found a bunch in the Med and a couple in Thailand. So these things are getting around. And while the Duncan had to make do with 30,000 pounds and a full keel, the Brewer gives you the same 30,000 pounds with 12,000 of that just being the ballast in the keel, but it also gives you a full keel with a centerboard that drops down onto the bottom of the full keel, giving you a full 9 feet of draft, which is going to help you point up into the wind a lot better. And this Brewer is littered with recent upgrades. This one is amazing. Let me list them for you. So these are the things that it has new for 2022. A brand new main, brand new genoa, brand new standing rigging, new chain plates, new AIS, the one with the Wi-Fi, the good one, new cushions, new fabrics, new 10-foot AB rib with a 15-horse Honda, a new Iridium Go, a new EPIRB, a new life raft, new bottom paint, new batteries. This list goes on forever. Almost everything about this amazing boat is basically brand new, and I think that's worth the $40,000, but we have to continue. Well, the Duncan came with an engine and a generator sort of built into its little tunnel where they lived. The Brewer has both, but they live in their own engine room to make maintenance much, much easier. It has an engine room on a 44-foot boat. You also get 2 heads, and you get a water maker on this boat. She's already outfitted for everything you could want her to do. This boat is, by all measures, an excellent blue water cruiser just in its bones, and you can call it home for 120 grand. And it's worth every penny. Everything's already here. It has solar, AIS, it has radar, it has dinghy davits, a brand new 15-horse rib. Buy it, stock it up with food and beverages, and just go. Before I let you guys go today, I think we should round this $80,000 versus $120,000 showdown off with my personal pick for this whole thing. At 120 grand, and you guys know I love these things, this is what I would buy. This, of course, is a Catalina 42 Mark II, and I think it's the perfect blend of comfort and speed, and also the perfect blend of a good price. It gives you a $200,000 sort of boat checklist for 120 grand, and it does it while checking every one of my boxes that I have for my own personal next boat. Dinghy davits with room for solar? Check. I get a walk-through transom with easy boarding and a sugar scoop? Check. I know I bring that up a lot, and you guys harp on me for every once in a while. Why does everything have to have a sugar scoop and a walk-through transom? I lived on Lady K in the Caribbean and didn't have those things and had to haul the groceries and the water jugs and things over the store. Just getting on and off the boat when I was thinking, hey, I feel like jumping in the water, going for a swim, oftentimes I wouldn't because it's such a pain to climb over the stern rail under the solar panels. A boat that's easy to board is a boat that you're going to use more. And look at this interior. Not only do I get my huge saloon with a nav desk I can actually see me sitting at doing my video editing for 8 or 10 hours a day, but also I get a huge aft cabin to call home at night. And you get the Pullman style forward cabin with a massive V berth that's been replaced with a head with a huge shower. The galley is a great size too, and I love the layout of this boat. It isn't a fancy like twin helm or anything outside, but the cockpit is still very large and comfortable. I can't tell you how many sundowners I've had on a Catalina 42 Mark II. And the Mark II isn't a slouch either. I've raced on one of these, actually only twice, but I raced on one. They're actually very nice sailing boats. I helmed one, and you certainly won't be the last one to the anchorage at the end of the day. It is that fast. This one even sports all the new high-end sort of touchscreen fancy electronics. And while that's not a purchase point for me, it means I wanted to spend money after the purchase. These 42s are just everything I need in a cruising boat for a price that's actually manageable for sort of a normal person. And being only 42 feet, it'll still fit in marina slips. And I can single-hand it with some confidence. I've driven 42-foot boats by myself. It's not a problem, but 42 is my limit. What would you buy for 80 grand? What would you buy for 120 grand? Let me know. Let's talk about it in the comments. Also, if you want to talk, a bunch of us hang out on the Lady K Discord channel. I'll leave a link in the description. Discord is basically an app you can get on your phone or your computer or your tablet that lets us talk to each other. So hopefully we'll see you there. Don't forget to like this video if you liked the video and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you guys next week. Until then, keep the heavy side down, but not too far down. Otherwise, you're sinking. We don't want that. See you next week.